The story begins with a very tragic scene because we see how a boy throws himself into an abyss, having as his last thoughts why he was born so weak and whether it would have made sense to keep on living, lamenting that he has achieved nothing whatsoever, plus they treated him like trash and now he feels he will die like that. Now we move to a group of adventurers who take charge of eliminating a giant rat, with the mage Yolan throwing at it a powerful fireball, thus finishing off the creature completely. This fight leaves the adventurers very happy because they think they are skillful, so they call for the trash picker. But this guy, tired of them calling him like that, tells them that his name is A, and right when he says this he slips and falls. Seeing that, the adventurer points out to him how useless he is, to which the mage asks him to please be a bit kinder to him, since he is not from the high class like they are. On hearing this, Ein apologizes, justifying himself by saying that the backpack is very heavy, and right away he starts his work, telling us that he works as an appraiser and it is the lowest class because when they are born the goddess of light assigns them a job and the goddess of darkness gives them the abilities, plus if they train them they can improve a very great number of abilities. Nevertheless, jobs are inherited and they cannot be changed, and there are also 3 job categories where at the base they have the low class where there are farmers and appraisers who are no good for fighting. Above that is the high class which includes people like Soid and Yoli, and above everything is the special class, where there are rich merchants and strategists. Having all that in mind, we know that jobs are inherited. Therefore children continue with the craft of their parents. However, since the Proto lost his own parents very young, he could not continue with the business, so he chose the other path for those of his class, that is to say, to become an adventurer dreaming of becoming rich. But now, seeing how he is, he feels disappointed about it. Then, using his evaluate skill, he discovers that the rat they have just killed has a rarity index of F. That is, the lowest, but its teeth are rank D, so with all his strength he tries to pull them out. Still, he cannot do it alone, so he asks his companions if they can help him. Obviously those lousy guys refuse, since according to them, because he is the trash picker he is the one who takes care of the trash, which angers him and he looks at them with deep disdain, something that darn Soid notices and kicks him, since they risk their lives to keep him safe, so the least he can do is at least pick up the trash. On hearing that, the Proto knows it is true, so since he cannot do anything he just apologizes and starts doing his job alone, while the lousy adventurers only mock how disgusting what he is doing is, adding too that the work he is doing is unnecessary, because anyone can take that corpse to the guild and there they will evaluate it with magic tools, something the protagonist knows very well. So he gives that adventurer the reason because he only serves to find and extract materials from monsters, plus the only reason why they allowed him to be in their group is because Soy does not want corpses in his magic bag. All this depresses him a lot, but in his mind he only repeats to himself that he has to endure. On the way they run into the corpse of a hellhound, so they order the trash picker to collect whatever it has. Although for our guy this seems very strange because according to the guild this monster should not be in this dungeon. Even so, Soy does not care about this and yells at him to do his job. And well, our protagonist does not have many options, since the materials of that creature are worth a lot. On top of that, while A was doing his work, the adventurers managed to see in the distance another hellhound corpse. That is more than enough for A to know that there is something strange, because the guild map says this should not be a passage. As was to be expected, Soy does not care about this either and just tells him not to complain about trifles, also by the way threatening him, saying that if he does not go with them then they will kick him out of the group. Faced with that, the protagonist knows very well that with his job there are not many groups that will accept him, so with no other choice he goes with them. Even so, in his mind he repeats again that this world is unfair. Once they enter that passage they run into more hellhound corpses, so he tells Soid that it is clear something is happening here because he wonders what or who could have finished them off, and if it was an adventurer, why did he not take anything? At those words, the adventurer yells at him to shut up. When he says that, right in front of them a bunch of hellhounds appear, and our protagonist notices that the corpses are from the same pack and that they were eating each other to survive. Obviously that pack scares everybody. So, to survive, that lousy Soy tells Yolan to cast a paralyzing spell on Ein, thus leaving the protagonist as bait. In the very process of being eaten, the Proto notices that the pain cancelled the paralysis, so he takes advantage of that to free himself. But since life is unfair, he discovers that the adventurers blocked the exit. As he advances through another passage, it leads him toward an abyss, and he realizes the sad reality he is in because now he only has 2 options. The first is to be eaten by hellhounds, or to throw himself into the abyss and possibly die, thinking that if he is going to die anyway, then at least he will throw himself into the abyss and hope for a quick death. Once he falls, he is awakened by the kiss of a girl, but he quickly faints again, and when he opens his eyes once more he is surprised that he is still alive and above all with his wounds healed. Then he notices a huge tree from which some drops of water are falling, and when he evaluates those drops he finds out that they are drops from the world tree. According to legends, it is the one that produces mana, and through the oxygen it emits, magic can be created. Yet it was believed that this tree had died. Even so, they wondered why there was mana if the tree had died, so they made expeditions to look for more world trees. He thanks the tree for having saved him. Even so, he knows he cannot stay, since there is nothing to eat, and besides he very much doubts his companions will send him help. Once he is in front of the exit, he imagines there must be much stronger monsters. Still, taking a stone, he knows he has to keep going. On the way he tells us that he has not run into any monster, which makes him very happy, thinking that if he manages to find the exit he will be able to escape, although then something quickly cuts his ear and then 2 fingers. This is the work of a gremlin, which is rank S, and this very same creature knocks him down a ton of times again. But just when it was going to finish him off, the monster is paralyzed and then crushed by a much stronger creature, which is a death bear or dead bear, which mercilessly with its claws destroys the prota's eyes and then grabs him to squeeze him so hard that it makes him vomit blood. Still, right then someone finishes off the bear, making it very clear to the prota that he should not get confused because this is not being done for him. After that, Ein wakes up noticing that his wounds have been healed, and on top of that, he is in front of a girl who turns out to be a gorgeous elf. That elf offers him a bit of tea. Yet our protagonist still did not understand anything, so the elf called Ursula makes him drink it by force, since she was not going to allow him to reject her daughter's tea. And when Ein drinks it he points out that it is very tasty, something that makes the elf called Yuri very happy. However, the mother tells the boy that if he has impure thoughts about her daughter, she will erase him from the map. After that, Ursula tells him she saved him because Yuri insisted she do it, so she asks him to thank her, which the good guy does by saying, "Thank you very much, Yuri." This does not please Ursula at all, who kicks him, telling him he cannot call her by her name. Then the elf mother tells him that she is the guardian of the world tree, adding that in this world there are 9 trees like this. And she says that Yuri is her daughter because she saw her grow from when she put down roots, something that confuses Ein, so Ursula tells him that Yuri is the will of the tree, in other words, she is its spirit. Faced with that, the prota remarks that no wonder she is so beautiful, earning himself another beating from Ursula, who yells at him that they did not give him back the eye for him to be using it like that. On hearing that, Ein remembers that he had lost his eye and obviously had been left very wounded, to which Ursula answers that she healed the wounds with drops from the world tree. But since that did not restore his eye, they decided to use part of the tree to make him an artificial one. So now it can be said that it is a spiritual prosthetic eye, and the elf mother stresses there that she did it at Yuri's request. So Yuri tells him she did it because the prota thanked the tree, that is, he also thanked her. It is there that Ursula tells him that sometimes other adventurers also fall down there, but even though Yuri saves them, those jerks take some branches from the tree and on top of that they do not thank her. After that, the elder elf tells the prota that since she has already saved him twice, he must leave, which worries Yuri a lot, since there are strong enemies on the way to the exit. Even so, her mother mentions that she is only allowed to get away from her up to a certain point and therefore she cannot accompany the boy to the exit. Despite that, her daughter keeps insisting, even to the point of starting to cry, so with no other choice Ursula tells our protagonist that she is going to train him, because that way he will be able to go out to the surface by himself. Obviously this makes our protagonist very happy, he even cries too, because he has hopes that he will be able to get out alive. After that, Ursula takes him to the dungeon corridors, where she teaches him that since he has a spiritual eye he can see in the darkness clearly, so our protagonist, remembering Yuri, at last manages to see in the dark. Thus Ursula tells him that at last his training begins, so quickly with a stone, she attracts the attention of a gremlin, obviously so that the prota learns to dodge attacks, advising him to use his evaluate skill because according to her words, evaluating with a spiritual eye is very different from doing it with a human eye. And indeed she is right, because when the prota uses his skill he notices that now in the information it shows what the creature will do, in this case that it will cut his right ear, and since the Proto does not dodge it, he unfortunately receives the damage. So with no other choice, Ursula the Crazy heals him using the drops of the World Tree, and tells the poor Proto that no matter how hard they hit him, she can heal him right away. So he will master these techniques on the very edge of death. Then Ursula sends him to fight again. So our protagonist, thinking much better, decides to use his spiritual eye even more, so he uses Reevaluate, now managing to see at what moment it will attack, which will be in 5 seconds, so calculating the exact moment he dodges it, which excites him because it is the first time he dodges a rank S creature. And for that very reason the gremlin takes advantage of the situation and cuts him. Still, this excites him because if he manages to master his skill, he is sure his world will change. And so weeks go by where we see how the Proto can now dodge normally, although from time to time he gets distracted and receives some cuts. Obviously Ursula the Crazy informs him there, by the way, that it is time to move on to the next lesson, and this is that he must defeat the gremlin, giving him a wooden sword, but obviously it is not common since it comes from the very World Tree. This is of course given by Yuri, who tore off a branch just so Ein could defend himself. Ursula threatens him, telling him that if he breaks it she will split him in two, something the protagonist accepts in fear. Even so, in his mind he thanks Yuri for this. Once the fight begins, the protagonist, using his Evaluate skill, tries to hit it, but the creature dodges, and the elf tells him that he will never hit it while being that slow. So Kanan asks her what he should do, and faced with that, the kind elf tells him to figure it out by himself. Then the protagonist keeps trying to hit it, but obviously he cannot. So Ursula, fed up with all this, asks him if by any chance he can only see movements with the spiritual eye. On hearing that, Ein knows he must force his spiritual eye even more, so he uses Super Evaluate, thus managing to see everything in slow motion. Then, when he strikes the gremlin, he smashes it against the floor, because even though he was seeing everything in slow motion, the movement was incredibly fast. Seeing this, the protagonist becomes very happy, since he defeated a rank S. Then Ursula hits him, telling him that it is still far too soon to celebrate, because now he will have to finish off all the gremlins in the area, and incredibly, after a while, he does it. So the elf mother tells him that as his next lesson he will use his Evaluate skill to turn a gremlin skill into his own. She explains to him that when he uses Evaluate on them he will absorb all the experience of that skill, and this thanks to the spiritual eye. So the protagonist, using Evaluate, obtains the Super Acceleration skill, although as a side effect his head hurts incredibly. After that he tries that skill, and although he is fast, it also tears his muscles, which was to be expected, because he was not born to use that skill. So Ursula the Crazy tells him to keep running again and again so that his muscles will get used to it. After that, the Proto feels much more confident to defeat a dead. However, Ursula tells him to lower that pride, since he is still not ready, which makes Ein sad. So the Elder Elf tells him she will let him evaluate her skill. Even so, she tells him that her skill is called Spell Suppression, which allows her to use magic just by thinking it, which means she does not have to recite the spell,